And when you were at that starting line, how did you feel?
It was incredible. I I never seen so many people, so many like-minded people worldwide. Like
Yeah,
8,000 people are here to do the same thing. And it's like nothing else. Like the biggest bike party I've ever been to. Yeah.
cool. Today we have Jasmine Wu, who's originally from Queens, New York. Jasmine is a lead songwriter, writing fun. For example, in 2021 and 2022, she rode over
She
14,000 miles and climbed over a million feet of elevation, which is incredible. I personally have never got close to either of those numbers. That's really impressive. In 2023, she completed PBP in a time of 94 hours and 15 minutes, which is a few hours over the time limit, but we'll talk about that in a while. Jasmine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It was fun. And I have to explain. I have to explain why I was able to write so much. I have a very supportive family. No amount of writing is possible without a very understanding and supportive family.
That is so true. I get very defensive as well. My family also very supportive. We're very lucky, Jasmine.
Yeah.
All right. So the first question I always like to ask is, what does completing PBP mean to you?
So when I finished it, it was just pretty amazing. I felt so lucky to be able to experience, this very unique event, in this pretty niche cycling community. So I couldn't believe that I was able to do this.
How did it feel once you reached the finish line? Were you happy, sad, angry?
I was so high. I mean, I've never taken, illegal drugs or anything, but I imagine that that's what it feels like. I had few friends who waited hours for me to
Yeah.
arrive. They're guesstimating when I would come in, and they were there, and then just like the atmosphere, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. And then kind of 6 months later, did you maintain that drug-free high?
Yeah, yeah. I think, as time goes, the difficult parts fade away, and then the better parts kind of gets bigger. So at least that's
Yeah.
how I like to remember things, and so it was amazing. It was so amazing.
Jasmine, similar to childbirth. Am I right?
I suppose you have to forget to do it again. Yeah.
I think so. So true. Nature, it's weird. Cool. Okay, next question. Let's get back to the start. Tell me about your background in cycling. Why do you ride?
So I've been riding kind of just like with family, take the kids out, and I got into more serious riding when pandemic happened. So 2020 happened, and everybody was school from home, work from home, and everybody was just kind of like all together and too much togetherness. I needed to get out to find my own space. It's a
Yeah.
little bit ironic. Yeah, and so I started writing more and more, and I joined the local club, and then and there were some amazing, very experienced people, very kind to guide me through this cycling journey. So about 2021, a couple of the people in my club, they're engineers.
Yep.
So, it was really good to learn about what engineering is, and so in 2021, I decided to try one of the 200Ks. Try it out, see what it's like. And it was pretty. I think people just started coming back from pandemic, so it was a bit of a surge, in the
Yeah.
participation. So it was very very good environment to try things and
Yeah.
and so on.
Uh, and Jasmine, so you must have ridden bikes before. Like you didn't suddenly in 2021 do 14,000 miles and 1 million feet of elevation, did you?
No, no, no. I mean, so I did ride bike before, but just really taking the kids out, going on
Yeah.
a 20-mile ride with friends, like not
Okay.
nothing really, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
But that must have been like quite a progression then, right? Like to go from 20-mile rides with your kids to I know you climb that mountain a lot. What's that big climb? I see it on Strava all the time that you guys do. Is there
Oh,
a famous spot?
there's a local climb called Page Mill that, it's very
Okay.
close to Silicon Valley. So
Yeah.
it's quick to get to. Yeah.
Yeah.
We do that climbing quite a bit, just early morning or so on. Yeah. So yeah, so when I started writing by myself more to escape the pandemic, I kind of started just testing myself, pushing, a bit of a distance and so on, right? And I think Strava has a very good thing. It's a very good reward system where it tells you like, oh, you're doing much better, in this segment,
Yeah.
and then you kind of like, well, yeah, let me try to do it again or more, and just little encouragements like that really kind of help pushing
Yeah.
yourself more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is incredible. Like I talked to Charlie. I think you ride with Charlie as well, isn't that right?
Yeah,
Charlie Martin.
he lives in the next town over. Yeah.
So he did 3 point something million feet in 1 year. But
He,
1 million is, do you know any other females that have done 1 million feet?
I think there are plenty. I don't keep track, but they're far more able people than me. But I have to contribute my ability to write so much to my family. Like I might
Yeah.
not write the fastest or anything, but I certainly do have more time than most people, most working people. Because
Yeah.
most of my family support. Yeah, to
We're
to
very
to
lucky.
accumulate.
That's great. But yeah, just to recap then, it was kind of the pandemic got you started again, and then
Mhm.
you just never looked back essentially. That's great. That's
I
wonderful.
I like
Great.
to say I hung out with the wrong people, and I just kept on writing more and more.
Yeah, they sound like the right people to me, Jasmine. That's good. So how did you originally hear about PBP?
Right. So a couple of people in my local club, Brian Feinberg and Ken Shoemaker, they've been doing this rendineering business for a very long time. Have done multiple PVPs. So and also Greg Robinson, who's done PVP twice on Tandem, and he's
Yeah.
such an incredible writer. They all told me about PVP and kind of all the stories behind it and so on. And
And did you, when you heard about it, did you say, I'm going to do that? Or it was a kind of something that evolved over time that you thought maybe you could do it?
it was the latter. I was not, I mean, it's like it's something I don't really understand what it is, so I can't be like, oh, I want to do that, but I'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, that's interesting, and so it kept it in the back of my head. And
Yeah.
and what led me to it was just kind of our club have a progression of distance, right? The
Yeah.
200K, the 300K, and as I complete one, I would contemplate the next one. It's like, maybe I can give 300K a
Yeah.
try, or maybe I
Yeah.
can give 400K a try, like, and all these trying was daunting. But again, I had people that were very helpful. Actually, one person that I want to mention was we have a writer, Peter Grace, who is
Oh, right.
also
Yeah.
from my local club, and
Yeah.
he's a far stronger writer than me. But because he knew my interest in this, he was willing to kind of slow his pace down and ride with me on some of the longer rides to make sure that that I was that I get back safely. Because sometimes we do have to ride in the dark and for a long time. So it's because of the kindness of fellow riders, that enable me to try longer and longer
Yeah.
distance. Right.
Yeah. As I was saying, Jasmine, it seems like you have a great group of friends
Mm.
down where you live in Cupertino, like
Yes. Yeah.
riding. Like I see it on Strava all the time. It sounds really supportive and everything.
Yes.
It's great.
Yes. So lucky. So lucky.
Yeah. Cool. So tell me, how did you kind of figure out what your strategy would be for your first PBP, which was obviously 2023?
So it kind of my rides got longer and longer, and then eventually, I have a great mentor, James. He kind of he could look at my data and kind of can tell and do a lot of calculation in his head. I don't know how he does
Yeah.
it, and then he looked at it and he's like, well, I think your time is pretty good, and at the time it was 1 year before PVP. And locally,
Yeah.
we have a big ride in California called the Gold Rush
Okay.
Rendezvous, right? And
Yeah.
that comes out of Davis, that goes out of Davis, and then go around the Sierras, and it's a very beautiful
Wow.
ride. And so he encouraged me. He's like, yeah, I think you can do it. You can do a multi-day ride. And he was gonna make sure that I was gonna be okay on the ride. So I was very encouraged. So I signed up, not really knowing what I was getting into.
Yeah.
And some of the more experienced rider, they saw me signing up. They're like, wow, you're so courageous. Like I saw the ride and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna help out because I can't ride. I was like, no, you're mistaken, ignorant, with bravery.
I know. I
I
know.
don't
So
know what
true.
I'm getting into.
Yes.
But my
Yes. I
friend,
think randonneering in general is ignorance, isn't that right? There's nothing brave or courageous. So true. Yeah.
yeah, and then so yeah, and then you just solve problem as it comes. Like I feel
Yeah.
this whole thing is just about solving problems as they come about. And so I did that one, and I was only able to do the 1,000K distance because I had family commitment. I could not do
Yeah.
one more day, and that was my longest ride, and just to get a taste of what it's like to do the multi-day ride. And
Amazing.
I was so broken at the end. Like I feel like my whole body was just like kind of broken. The only thing is holding
Yeah.
everything together was my skin. And then
That's
and
funny.
then and then and so but after about a week I was like, oh, again the bad things start going away, and then they're and it was like, oh, that
Yeah.
is quite incredible. So that's when I was thinking like, oh, maybe I could try try
Yeah.
PBT. And it
So
was very fortunate because if you do a big ride the year before PBP, you get to register for PBP
yeah.
earlier than some of the people that done shorter rides, right? So that was very fortunate that I had done that. I just people plan so long with it, and I just stumble
Yeah.
upon these things, and
Amazing.
so lucky.
Ignorance. A lot of
Ye-
ignorance. Yes. Good. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But you must have known, like the longest
Oh, the
ride I ever.
strategy. Oh, sorry.
Oh, well, I'm just saying, but you must have known you did 1,000 kilometers, right?
Mhm.
Like PBP, it's only another 200, right? So that is an amazing test.
But I don't think it's sufficient though. I don't think it's sufficient.
Okay.
So the reason I mentioned that is because so how did I strategize PvP? My friend James here helped me look at the data, kind of see about the climbing, the miles per hours and so on, and then help figure out like how fast we might go through the distance that we need to cover and so on, and we kind of use that data and use the other rides. I
Okay.
think the Fulbright 600K, that was a pretty
Yes.
tough one as well. So using those to kind of figure out
I,
timing.
I, I remember riding with both you and James on the 600, and I remember thinking, God, these people are fast.
No,
I really remember I felt very like just, maybe at that 400K mark at the campground. Man, I was tired. But you guys were so strong. Had James done the ride before?
uh,
PBP?
no, this was also his
Okay.
first PvP. But he was a racer before, so he's
Okay.
he's very capable. He just kind of like, oh, I'll give this long distance thing a try.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mm.
And then how did you decide on which group to go with, 90 hours versus the other options?
So the group, the SFR had a lot of discussion, with people very experienced, and
Yeah.
some is convinced that you want as much time as possible in case something goes wrong, and some is convinced that well, starting the ride in the middle of the night, like at the evening and right through the night might not be the best, to start a ride with a sleep deficit. So, there are all these talks, and in the end, I think I chose to be conservative and give myself more time. So since I had the
Yeah.
option to register early, I chose
Yeah.
the 90-hour or earlier ninety
Yeah.
hour time.
Jasmine, I'm with you. It's logical, isn't it? I don't get the other options. 90 hours. You want to give yourself every available minute, particularly on your first time. I personally think.
Right, but the thing is though, after doing the PvP actual, you know, the thing is, I think I might do better starting early in the morning Because even
Okay.
though we started like in the evening at 5 o'clock and then go on whatever, right? You really didn't sleep earlier that day. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So you're essentially you're up 2 days. If you
Yeah.
sleep, yeah. So I can't see the point of those other people make
But
to
I also
start
think
5 a.m.
you're not going to sleep the night before if I don't think you are. You think so? You might as well be riding. I think.
That's that's what a
Okay.
lot of people said. I
Okay.
agree.
Cool.
That's what a lot of people said. Yeah.
Okay. So next question: what were the logistics like getting to PBP? I think you traveled with your family. Is that correct?
I wanted to, but
Okay.
in the end, we realized it interfere with their school.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so it was not gonna work. So we had taken them to France, during the summer, and then and
Okay.
then I came back to
Yeah.
came back by myself. So
Nice.
so in a way, I did a reconnaissance with my family.
Nice.
I went I went to Brest to check out
Wow.
the
Wow.
where the location was going to be turned around,
That's
scope out the
great.
street nearby, and
Yeah.
is there a
Did
hotel nearby we
yeah.
can book
Yeah.
and so
Did
on.
you actually ride at all that time or no?
With my family, I did not ride the
Okay.
PBP route. I did rent a little bike near where Tour de France was happening, and I rode
Oh, that's
over
cool.
there for a day, yeah, to see
Cool.
what the pros
So,
do.
yeah. So then anyway, so you traveled by yourself to PBP,
Mhm,
which by
mhm.
the way is so much less stressful. Don't tell anyone, but it's true, isn't it? Okay.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So how did
yes.
that go? Was it hard to get there?
No, no, it was fine. It was a lot of group knowledge from so far, a lot
Yeah.
of discussion, a lot of communication about trains and so on. So it was pretty. I got to Charles de Gaulle and took the train to Paris, and then
Yeah.
eventually found the train to go to Rambouillet and so on. Yeah,
Oh, that's
so
great. Okay. And when you were at that starting line, how did you feel?
it was, incredible. I never seen so many people, so many like-minded people worldwide, like
Yeah.
8,000 people are here to do the same thing, and it's like nothing else, like the biggest bike party I've ever been to. Yeah.
Cool. So, Jasmine, I'm going to ask you to talk about the ride itself, but I just
Okay.
want to read this quote that you wrote on your Strava shortly afterwards. Okay. So, what I read better line up with what you're about to say. That's important. Okay. All right. So, what an incredible journey. And I can't believe the highs and lows I can experience in 4 days could be so emotional. But there was also such difficult moments that I wasn't sure how I could get out of. With that said, go ahead. Tell me about the ride.
The ride started great, just everybody starts and just all these people. And they're still pretty okay. The most difficult time for me to ride is between 4 and 6 in the morning. That
Yeah.
just like when my body really wants to rest and don't want to go on. And it was pretty hard and it's dark and then I started losing some strength and then losing the train that I was following. And so it was pretty hard. And then, but then once the sun gets out, it's okay. And then
Yeah.
and then we keep going the next day, and then just like we just kept writing, and I was like, I
When does it
feel like,
stop?
but
Yeah. When does it stop? That's exactly it,
I
right? You
feel
just
like,
keep riding. Yeah.
I feel like, oh my god, I feel like whoever, like, why would people do this more than once? Like, they must be insane, like it.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand, why people would do this. So we keep going, and then but I had good company. I had good
Yeah.
company. I have my friends with me, and it's really helped so much. And you start seeing more and more people. I saw you. I saw
Yeah.
Michael Chalfant and just all these. It's so great, so great. And it definitely it started getting really difficult. I had to push through the second nine. I was climbing, toward Brest. There's this big climb, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
the downhill was just in the middle of the night,
So
dark.
true. Yeah.
I was so
Yeah.
tired, and I think for the
Yeah.
first time as I'm downhilling, like I was sleepy, which is so
Yes.
dangerous. Yeah,
Yeah.
and and
A-
but
And
we,
had you Jasmine, had you slept at all before Brest?
I've never done a non-sleep 600K in the US, right? I have never done that, but so it was very difficult for me. So I had to
Yeah,
take about 2 20-minute naps at certain places where I just couldn't feel like I couldn't keep my eyes open. So I did
yeah.
that
Yeah.
to
And what
push
do you
through.
think? Yeah. And like what? Because you've done 600s, you've done thousands, but it sounds like you felt pressured time-wise. Is that correct? That you felt you had to keep going. Is that right?
Sort of, because I had booked a hotel at Brest, and I was like, "Well, I
Okay.
just need to get there, then I can get a good
Yeah.
rest." Right?
Nice.
So I think that might have been, too optimistic on my part.
Yes.
You know,
Do you think it was the controls slowed you or maybe stopping for food? Like, because again, you'd done this before, at least those distances.
no, I think it was more to the fact that I have a place that I could just completely rest at Brest.
Okay.
So let's just
Okay.
get there, right?
Okay. It must have been
So
a really nice hotel, Jasmine. Was it a really nice hotel? That's why
well,
you
no,
wanted to get
it's
there.
just a bed.
That's
Just
just
a
good.
bed that I could
Yeah.
crash,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So on the hindsight, that might have been a little bit, because I think a lot of people they were stopping at what is that place called? Ludiac. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people have resting place at Ludiac, and that might have been a better, place to take a break and then
Yeah.
have a rest. So I feel that was so all these pushing, right, kinda got and then I'm just tired, and I think I had estimated how fast I would ride, of a certain distance, not realizing that when you're tired, you don't ride at the amount of time you think, right? So I was
Yeah.
like, "Well, from here to Brest, it's only, blah, 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 it'll probably take 4 hours," right? Um, but no, now when you're that tired,
No. Yeah.
you take, 6 hours or plus, and then that makes you even
Yeah.
more tired. And so that kinda started it went down a road of, like, just, tire accumulating more and more, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I did get to rest, I did rest, right? But I think then I think, I probably needed to catch up on my rest earlier, and then
Yeah.
that kinda just well, just kinda started going downhill for my body.
Yeah. How
Um,
many hours do you think you got at Brest sleep-wise?
I think I got in at 5:30 and I
Wow.
slept until,
Oh,
maybe like 11. So, like, I
okay.
did get some good hours,
Okay.
but a little bit too late for that for the deprivation.
Yeah.
So then kept going, right? And then at this point, like I think I was still doing okay that day during the day. And then when the coming back, right, and that was a particularly hot day and I was still
It
doing
was, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I was very lucky, kept hydrating, kept icing and so on. But then that evening kind of things started to not going so great because then now I'm just body just exhausted.
Yeah.
And my body did not get enough sleep. I mean, did not get enough rest, did not get enough downtime for my body to process some of the stuff, right?
Yeah.
So my digestive system started acting up. It
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
it was not going too well. I did not feel like eating because it was
Yeah.
a bit backed up, right? And I think
Jasmine, do you think it was different foods as well that might have been part of it or not really?
I think later on I figure out that, I really need to, for me personally, I need to focus on fiber and
Yeah.
fruits, and it wasn't something that I couldn't get there, but it was something I did not focus enough on.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I think in the long distance riding business, if you cannot eat or don't feel like eating,
Yeah.
that's
It's a problem. It's a problem. Yeah.
it's a bit of a
Yes.
problem, right? So
Yeah.
so then I just kind of became, slower like I just couldn't, do as well as I was doing on the first leg out. At one point I had to, at one point I just, I always try to do the best I could, and I couldn't do the best I could, and I was kind of slowing people down, way more than I would I want.
Yeah.
And then the second night we were able to we again got to the rest place way later. I had booked a place in Fougères, but
Yeah.
we were so far away from Fougères that one just had to be let go. So we found something a little bit earlier. One of the controls that had bed, and then
Yeah.
we just like, well, we can rest here. And even after the rest, then the next day I did not bounce back. I did not bounce
Yeah.
back to first or the second day. And then I wrote what I could and very sleepy, and especially with the heat, then I got even further back. And then one point, James had lost me, and then he was waiting for me for quite a bit. He was seeing these hundreds of riders going by, just
Yeah.
like, it's
Yes.
very patient. And I knew at that point that, I don't think I cannot make it to the control he thinks is best, for us to make time, right? I like
Yeah.
he thinks if we make it to that control and rest some more, then we'll make it back. But I cannot make it to that control without resting first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is where I feel, like as a writer that's being held, you need to know when you have to let the other person go, like save yourself,
Yeah. It's
and
like Everest or something, isn't it? It's like Mount Everest. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So at this point, in the evening, I think I was like, I need to rest. I'm not able to write. I think he had the best
Yeah.
strategy, which is to write to the next one and then rest there. I say you need to go ahead, and let me rest first and then see if that makes a difference for me to write to the next rest stop before he needs to go. That he deemed
Yeah.
the best time. And so he goes on, and I try to do what I can. I try to sleep, but I didn't sleep as long as I wanted, or because you're
Yeah.
sharing a dormitory with
It's so
people
hard. Yeah. It's
snoring.
so
And
hard. Yeah.
yeah, and so I got up. I was gonna sleep for 3 hours. I only slept maybe an hour and a half, and my body, I was like, you know what, I'm not sleeping well, let me just keep writing. So
Yeah.
I got up at 1:30 and I started writing again, and then writing, and it's difficult to write at night, but I kept going.
Oh, yeah.
And whenever I see, like if I can catch a train, if I can just ride with somebody that would be great. And I try to do that while I can, but I didn't have enough rest. And then at 4 a.m. I found there was this little like bike museum in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And the shopkeeper, he's not even part of the PBB. This is the thing. The whole second half, you just have all these people out there supporting you. They're not
Yes.
official
Yeah.
program. They're just
Yeah.
offering food and drink and bed. And he opens his shop. He has two like long chairs, and people are just crashing there. And and
Wow.
and I was like, can I just lie down there for like 20 minutes? I asked him. And then he asked me, how long do you need? I will wake you up. Yeah, it's like,
Wow. Amazing.
and
Amazing.
so I ended up dozing off for an hour before I could write again. But
Yeah. That's
it's just, I would. That's the low I'm talking about. I was just so
yeah.
exhausted, but everybody around you, the spectators, that they know what you're up to, and they're helping you. They're supporting you. And I
Yeah.
kept going, and I woke up next day and I kept going. And at this point, I knew I wasn't gonna make it to the time that James said it best to leave if you want to make it
Yeah.
there by the cutoff. But I was like, well, you know what? What am I gonna do? I mean, I'll just keep writing. I'll get there when I get there. I'll get to the next control when I get there. And
Yeah.
I knew I had missed him. I knew most people that was started at that time, they had to have gone. So that was probably one of the lower parts. And I got to the control. I've never done this before. I got to that control. I had them
Yeah.
stamp my book, right?
Yeah.
And right next to the table of the control, there were like pile of people just sleeping on there. And I went right there and I just calmed down and I had to sleep
So
for
amazing.
for one more hour. I
That's
um
amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
So you were pretty sure you weren't going to make the 90 hours at that point.
At that
Did
point,
you
yeah,
ever did you ever consider, well, I'll just get a train home? But you kept pushing through, isn't that right?
I did. The reason I kept going is because I this is a foreign land. I don't know the language. I don't know the
Yeah.
transportation system. And
Okay.
I feel like it would have been a bigger effort just to figure those out, just
So
than
true.
than just getting on my bike and just keep riding what the direction tells me.
Yeah, that's funny. That's hilarious. Yeah.
As long as they don't stop me and tell me like, "Hey,
Yeah.
you can't go anymore," I was
Yeah.
just gonna keep going. Yeah.
And Jasmine, what were the emotions like? Like you knew at that point, you knew, I suppose, you were going to finish, but you knew you were beyond the 90 hours. Were you annoyed or disappointed, or you just wanted to get to Paris?
I think I wasn't annoyed. I just wanted to, I feel it got a little bit better because then there's no pressure. It's just about making back. It's
Yeah.
not about a
Yeah.
certain time. Although again, I was still pretty exhausted. And at one point I was writing, feels like forever. I was writing for 2 hours. And then I looked down at my GPS after 2 hours. I've only made like 20
It's the
miles of
worst.
progress.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm never gonna
Yeah.
get anywhere at this speed." And
Yes.
so I pull into a town, small town in front of a cafe. And then I park my bike right there. And then I sat down and I started crying uncontrollably.
Okay. Where was it? How far away were you at this point from the end?
I'm a
300K or something?
I'm a little bit blurry. I think
Okay.
I I'm a little bit blurry. Yeah, it's between
It
3 and
doesn't matter. Okay.
200K.
I'm sorry.
Right.
So you,
And
yeah.
I sat down, I started crying uncontrollably. And I have to admit, I have cried in every single big randomly I've done. I just think it's part of it.
It's
You
part of
question
the
your
journey. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And and then so the cafe across the street, I was very fortunate that the shop owner was an expat who spoke perfect
Yeah.
English, right? So he
Yeah.
comes over to me. Are you okay? He's like, can I get you something? Can I get you some candy, some coffee? Like he knows like we need these. He's like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
get you both because I was busy crying.
Yeah.
He gets me both.
Yeah.
And then there are these two French ladies. They come over. They're like, "Do you need a hug?" Like they're like trying to help. And then eventually this other writer comes by and he goes like, he's a British writer from, he comes by. He's like, do you want someone to ride with you?
Yeah.
And at that point I'm still crying. I'm like, "No, you don't want to ride with me. I'm riding so slow right now. I'm barely moving. You don't want to ride with me." And he's like, his knee. Oh, I know what this was. This was before
Yeah.
Drew. Drew. This was before
Yeah.
Drew, right? And
Okay.
and he says his knee was hurting, and that he wanted,
Yeah.
so he wasn't gonna ride fast. So he'll, let's ride together. And that was what I needed to get back up again. Just like some company, and we had a good chat. We rode together,
Yeah.
and we do what we could. And at one point, I started doing better, and he wasn't being he was speaking truth. His knee was bothering him. So at a certain
Yeah.
point, I kind of started to, do better. And then we were 5 miles from the control. I was like, well, I'm just gonna go
Yeah.
there, and we'll meet up there, because at this point, I think everybody uh, want to minimize the time they have on their saddle. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so that's how it got me to the last control before Brombiet. And then from there, I saw a German tandem about to leave. They were in a
Yes.
different time than me, so they were still in their valid time. So I've drafted some tandems locally, and I know it is a
That's the way to
tremendous
go.
help. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I jumped at it, and I
Yeah.
kept following them and drafting them. And then the stoker in the back, looks over to me. He knows where I'm following them. He looks over me
Yeah.
at my number, and he goes,
Yeah.
You're at a time limit." I was like, "Yeah, I know." And my very low journey, like ended up really, fantastic. If you
Yeah,
look at segment
amazing.
times, from my last rest stop, control to
Yeah,
that was very fast thanks to
yeah.
the tandem. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the weird thing, Jasmine, how you can have such low points physically and emotionally, and then from nowhere you find the strength. It just doesn't make any sense, does it? So
Yeah,
how
yeah.
did you feel when you crossed the finish line?
It
You're
was
never going back to Paris ever
no,
again.
no, I was not thinking about that. I was just so surprised that my friends were there waiting for me, taking pictures
Wow,
and saying, like,
so
they were
cool.
waiting for like 4 or 5 hours, and
Wow.
my friend Kirsten, she could have, gone back to her hotel and rest, but she was there, like just waiting,
Yeah,
So
amazing. That's
yeah.
great. And so then, so you were delighted to get there. Big relief. How did it feel like 6 months later? Satisfaction?
So the more I think about it, the more I couldn't believe I was so lucky to experience such amazing thing. I have heard a lot of stories about,
Yeah,
you know, people's experience, but to kind of experience it is different. It's
yeah,
yeah, it's just all the little stories. I think, you know, our friend Lisa had mentioned there's this thing called glimmer, recently, that, it's like these little joyful moments in life,
yeah.
and they add up. And I think, it's just so much of those that I could
That's
write a book
wonderful.
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so good. Well, you're on
Yeah.
a podcast now or a video,
Mhm.
so maybe that's good. That'll have to do. What's amazing, Jasmine, I'm looking at your rolling time. So it was 55 hours and 28 minutes, which is amazing. So that basically means whatever my math is, 35 hours. You had 35 hours off the bike that would have got you to the 90-hour limit. So it really is what happened off the bike for you then. It
Yes.
wasn't about speed. Like your average speed was 13.6 miles per hour. So yeah, congratulations. It's
Thank
an
you.
amazing achievement. Well done. And to actually finish, that's incredible. So here's the next big question. Oh, actually, I was going to ask you this first. Any thoughts about riding as a female? Any differences?
I think to me, it was a bit of an advantage, to be a female writer because, well, both, because obviously at times I don't feel, not in France, but locally here, if I'm writing in a more secluded area, I feel less safe, right? But as a female writer, I think other writers are more willing to help you, right? Other writers they speak to they talk to you more. Like, I think
Yeah,
among guys is a lot of times like competition, kind of like,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
but being
men. Yeah, yeah,
but being female, people like just chat with you. They don't really hold back. They feel, and
yeah.
I think that's an advantage. You know,
Yeah, like
uh,
it's amazing. It's 7% participation by females, PBP, which is really low. So
you know,
you must feel like a celebrity, basically, you know? And the French people are amazing, I think, in general. And I think Lisa mentioned that they're even more hospitable when they see a female, which is so cool.
right, right, right.
Okay, so here's the $1 million question, and I don't know the answer, so you have to tell me. Do you plan to do it again?
So I will answer to that in a minute. I think, you asked me what I did afterwards, right? I think
Yeah,
I just delved into a lot of analysis and what I could have done better, what went wrong,
yeah,
like you said, my writing time was pretty decent. And so it really is my off bite time. And so I kept on trying to figure out, what, like 36 hours, what was I doing, right?
it's a
You know?
day and a half. What were you doing? A day and a half you were off the
Right.
bike. Yeah,
Right. So,
yeah,
I think that ties into, so what didn't work for me was a lot of advice I got was, or to just keep going. And then if you're tired,
yeah.
take an hour nap and then keep going, take an hour nap. But, I think that did not work for my body. I think,
Yeah.
what I needed was a good chunk of sleep, maybe like 4 hours of sleep. If I can get 4 hours of sleep per night,
Yeah.
then I
Yeah.
will be less exhausted during the day and that I could perform better. And so I took that theory and I tested out on a domestic 1200K
Oh, wow.
in the East Coast. Right,
Yeah.
and I roll hard, but then I make sure I have 4 to 5 hours of rest, and then to see if I can continuously ride harder the next day and not feel the exhaustion I did at PBP, and I was able to do that and perform
Wow.
far better even on the 4th day. Yeah,
Wow.
and so that ride had the more elevation than PBP. So
Amazing.
I was able to finish a 1200K within time limit. So that was my
Yeah. That's
so that
great.
tested out my theory that, if I had just rested better, I would do better and not waste time
Yeah.
on the writing days.
Cool.
So I would like to go back and see if I could
Yeah.
do PvP within time limit.
Yeah,
Um
that's wonderful. Yeah.
yeah,
Of
so
course you're coming back. Everyone goes back. We know that, Jasmine. Okay. Great. Well, congratulations. It's an amazing story. All right. So this is how we end it, Jasmine. You're going to give us 3 tips for someone who wants to complete PBP.
Okay. So I think the first thing is, spend time to get to know your body. Like what I said, what your body needs might not be what the other person needs. So the whole 1 hour nap thing did not work for me, So try different rides and figure it out and do what's right for you, not what everybody's saying. And then next one is, so I think, during long rides, you're gonna hit a point where you just feel awful. And a lot of times it's because, you just need a little bit more food. You just
Yeah.
need a little bit more of a rest and stretch. So when you are feeling your lowest, don't give in to that feeling. What I like to do is just kind of focus on the next immediate goal, right? Let's get to that control and then let's see what happens. Don't in the middle of ride going, oh, this is horrible. I don't want to do that. Just get to the next control. Get some food, get some rest, get
Yeah.
some stretch. You will feel different. I guarantee you. Because that's how I get through everything. Just focus on the little things and
The
then
next
so
control.
so
Yeah.
don't give in to the horrible feelings. And then the last thing I would say is, you have to enjoy the journey. I think that's what got me through. Just focusing on the different things that you get to experience. I think it's nice to finish PvP, but you know what? Your experience will be just as rich if you focus on what's happening, and what you're experiencing. So
So true. So true. Jasmine, may I say it's always a pleasure to see you out on the road. You're always so happy and upbeat, and it's just great riding with you. And
thank you.
congratulations on your PBP. Like, it's an incredible achievement that you just kept going. So good for you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
thanks again. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.